Hello and welcome to National Focus. I am Julian Morris. The headlines: millions invested in geothermal development in Roseau Valley. Modernizing the electoral process, a priority for government. And Member of Parliament for Roseau Central, Honourable Melissa Skerritt, defends government's housing allocations. Details of the headline stories and more when we return.
I love the freedom when I'm out there. Simply put, the worries from shore, none of that out there. And it's my daily bread. I learned it from my dad. My dad is one of the senior guys here who catch the biggest fish around here. And he's top with the red snappers. It's a family thing. I'm the only one fishing right now in the family. Just keeping it going. I enjoy bringing them up, man. Sometimes you have a yellowfin tuna, 400 pounds. Man, let me tell you, that's just a joy out there. I enjoy going out there and just holding the big fish. I don't lift weights, I lift fish. The morning of my fishing trip, I would get up, make a little spice tea. Then I come down here. I have my GPS, which most fishermen are supposed to have that. Normally I prepare the day before, because whenever you go out there, you must have ice. Ice is a must for preservation of the fish. So I always make sure I have everything the day before. My fish represents me, and I bring good quality fish ashore simply because the restaurants themselves, they have to show a quality product. Tourism and agriculture go hand in hand. That's what I think. We're all connected. It's like a big machine, and I'm just so proud to be a part of it. My name is Brandon Carlisle, and tourism is my business.
Welcome back. Prime Minister of Dominica, Honourable Roosevelt Skerritt, has once again reiterated government's position on electoral modernization. Kuvia John reports.
Speaking at the first sitting of the first session of the 11th Parliament, Prime Minister Honourable Roosevelt Skerritt stated that the process of electoral modernization, aided by Sir Dennis Byron, has been progressing smoothly. He noted that as of December 2022, Sir Dennis has presented his first draft report. The Prime Minister has since met Sir Dennis 3 times to discuss the recommendations made in the draft report. The Prime Minister explained that drafting of legislation was not included in the agreement with Sir Dennis Byron. However, based on the advice of Sir Dennis and the chairman of the Electoral Commission, government has contracted a legal drafts expert to assist in the drafting of legislation for electoral modernization.
In the terms of references of the engagement of Sir Dennis Byron, the drafting of legislation was not part of it. At the request of Sir Dennis Byron and the chairman of the Electoral Commission, I authorized the engagement of a legal drafts expert to draft all of the legislation to form part of the submission on electoral reform. And as Minister of Finance, I provided all of the resources to pay for the legal consultant to draft those legislation. I have said to Sir Dennis Byron, and I will say to the Parliament of Dominica, to the people of Dominica, that this matter is the matter that I wish to put to rest once and for all in our country.
The Prime Minister went on to state that he hopes to bring legislation for electoral modernization before Parliament by April of 2023 so that government can begin the implementation of this legislation.
I wish to come to the Parliament to seek parliamentary approval of the new legislation by April of this year, so that the process of implementation can begin immediately thereafter. And so I'm hoping that this meeting this afternoon, Mr. Dennis Byron, will be the final one, and that we will receive the final report from Sir Dennis Byron the soonest, so that there can be consultation with stakeholders. Because consultation with any politician or any group of politicians is not the final point of consultation. The people of Dominica must be consulted on this very important matter of their right to be given, the right to vote in Dominica, if they so choose to register and to vote in Dominica's election.
Prime Minister Skerritt says government has ensured that there has been full transparency during the entire electoral modernization process.
I want to make it very clear, Mr. Speaker, that we shall continue to engage in this matter of electoral reform with the highest sense of transparency. the highest sense of transparency. We have absolutely nothing to hide or to be afraid of with this process, because the records will show that this is the only political party in our country's history that has taken the responsible approach of engaging with the modernization of our electoral processes in Dominica.
The Prime Minister re-emphasized that there has always been free and fair elections in Dominica at all time periods.
But I will say this also, that every election that we've had in Dominica, prior to and post our independence, were all free and fair. And everyone accepted those results. But there has been a culture in our country to give the impression to the international community that our elections are not free and fair. We're all here today, Mr. Speaker, because a process under the Constitution and appropriate laws of Dominica will recognize, and people demonstrated their franchise and the constitutional right to vote in our elections. This is why we have 21 elected members of Parliament sitting with us. And this is why we have 9 nominated persons, senators, sitting in the Parliament today.
Kuvia John for the Government Information Service.
Government has invested over $20 million in the Roseau Valley towards the generation of geothermal energy. Minister with responsibility for energy, the Honorable Vince Henderson, says there has been quite a lot of investment behind the significant progress that has been made in the Roseau Valley.
Over the last several months, we have invested over $20 million in the Roseau Valley. We've improved the roads to Loda. That was at an investment of about $2.5 million, just to ensure that the equipment doing the drilling would have easy access to that, to Loda. In October of this year, we brought the rig into Dominica, and the rig, that is to say the drilling rig, sorry, from Iceland Drilling, for those of you who don't know, it's about over, how many, about 100 feet. It's huge. It's a massive, massive structure with their own generation capacity of about 4 megawatts. That's almost 30% of what all of us consume in Dominica. So that's a huge undertaking. So we have, in the Roseau Valley, drilling taking place. We've completed the drilling of one well. That is one production well. That is where the steam comes up, and that is the steam that will be used to power a turbine to provide electricity. The first well, excellent results so far. We have the temperature, the pressure, the permeability, all the things that we're looking for. Excellent. It seems to be as good as the other well, one of the wells that we have already in Loda. So that hopefully will give us another 10 megawatts of power. Just to give you an idea, we consume 15 megawatts in Dominica. Our peak demand is 15. We already have a 10 megawatt well and another 2, and we just, in December of last year, drilled another well with possibly the potential of giving us another 10 megawatts. So we have in the Roseau Valley now the ability to generate more power than we need in Dominica.
A reinjection well is also being drilled.
That is the well that is used to put all the stuff that comes out back into the system, so we do not send anything out of the environment. So we are preparing the site for that. It is, that entire contract is being done by ACE Engineering to the tune of about $3 million US. We have some recent cost overrun, and because of the nature and type of the soil in that area, but the work should be completed in the second well pad by the end of February, and by March we will be drilling the new reinjection well. That investment, the drilling part, is about $16 million US, 43 million EC dollars. That is being funded with $10 million US. We have grant from the United Kingdom, $2 million from SIDSDOC, which is an organization that I help fund, and we're also getting the additional funds from the World Bank through the IDA funds. So that is the entire $16 million package.
The next stage is to actually construct the plant, which will cost between 60 to 70 million US or 160 to 190 million EC dollars. President of Dominica, His Excellency Charles Savre, has called on new parliamentarians to take their duties seriously. Kuvia John reports.
During his address to Parliament on Tuesday, February 7, 2023, President Charles Savre congratulated all the elected representatives and the selected senators on both sides of the House. He encouraged the members to remain true to the oath that they have taken.
I sincerely wish to commend and congratulate the Honorable Leader of the Opposition, who was sworn in by the President on Tuesday, the 20th day of December 2022, and to say to you, Madam, and to the members of the Parliamentary Opposition, that yours is a most sacred task, and encourage all of you to remain true to the oaths that you have subscribed to this morning, and to be constructive in your contributions to the debates in this House and the general governance of the affairs of the state.
The President called on the new parliamentarians on both sides to proceed with their duties in accordance to the standing orders, which are the rules which govern the affairs of Parliament.
Parliament is the supreme legislative body where matters affecting governance and affairs of state are deliberated upon and voted into law. Freedom of speech without threat of legal action for slander is one of the most important privileges enjoyed by members of Parliament. However, the right to speak is governed by the standing orders of the House. The standing orders are essential to safeguard and maintain order and decorum when debates are taking place. The standing orders provide guidance as to what you can say, how you can say it, when you can say it, and for how long you can speak on each matter.
The new parliamentarians were also reminded to respect the Speaker of the House and his decisions as it relates to the proceedings of the House.
The Speaker of the House presides over the proceedings of the House and is charged with the responsibility of maintaining order in the chamber by ensuring that the rules of the House and established practices are followed and respected. Additionally, the Speaker has the duty to interpret the rules and give guidance as to the practices of the House to ensure that the debate is focused. His rulings on points of order raised by members is final. So while the Speaker of the House is charged with maintaining the dignity and the decorum of the House, each of you must take responsibility for your behavior and to make your contributions in an appropriate manner.
President Savre told the Fresh Faces that their goal should be to become effective members of Parliament.
I therefore make a special appeal to you to have due regard to the rulings and admonitions of the Speaker and to familiarize yourself with the standing orders of the House. I encourage you, whether elected or appointed as a senator, to aim to become an effective member of Parliament. This would require you to seek advice, to always prepare for the debate by reading and conducting research, to always have a firm grasp of the issues at hand, and develop good research techniques and organizational skills.
He added that while a challenging job, the opportunity to contribute significantly to the development of the country should be embraced.
It is a daunting task, but the rewards in terms of personal growth, confidence, satisfaction in the attainment of a wealth of knowledge and respect by your peers and constituents are immense.
Kuvia John for the Government Information Service.
You are watching National Focus. More when we return. Minister for Housing and Urban Development, Honorable Melissa Popon-Skerrit, has addressed allegations that there is favoritism in selecting beneficiaries under government's housing program. Here is Octavia Prosper with more.
The allegations were made in Parliament this week by Parliamentary representative for the Salisbury constituency and leader of the opposition, Mrs. Jesma Paul Victor.
The member gave the impression that many of our constituents in Salisbury and Colby Street did not receive assistance, and that under the Housing Recovery Project, it was politically motivated, and so they were denied housing because it is in the Salisbury constituency. Since, Mr. Speaker, she wants to draw political lines as a deciding factor for eligibility under the HRP project, let me inform this House that out of the 114 homes built in the Prime Minister constituency, the red zone I call it, received 1 home. In the Roseau Central constituency, another Labour stronghold received 1 home, to a non-supporter to be exact. In the Cottage constituency, a Labour stronghold, only 2 homes under the same project, Mr. Speaker. Let's switch over to the opposition seats from the previous term. Roseau North, 40 beneficiaries. Marigot received 31 beneficiaries. Sadly to say, in the Salisbury constituency, very few people applied to this project, but yet still 4 beneficiaries were awarded to Salisbury, twice that of Bakers and Roseau Central combined.
Minister Skerrit added more funds were allocated for the construction of further housing for recipients.
Tell me, Mr. Speaker, it is clear that the selection process has nothing to do with bipartisan involvement. There is absolutely no influence of cabinet in that process. In fact, if that was the case, the Roseau Central power rep has a very aggressive power rep. She likes to take a big chunk of government funding for her constituents. Surely Roseau Central will be able to boast of a significant amount of homes under this project. But I can only speak of one. In fact, Mr. Speaker, based on the expressed concerns of the applicants who were falling short, the Prime Minister solicited the consideration of the World Bank to make adjustments that would allow more Dominicans to qualify.
Minister Skerrit says $2 million was also spent for the construction of homes in Salisbury and other neighboring communities.
People may not be aware, or beneficiaries may not tell others what they received. But I want the member of the Salisbury constituency to note that $2 million was spent in Coolibee Street and Salisbury and Monterachet to help with home renovations. And these funds, they can track it, these funds were routed through the village council. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, after Maria, 10 houses were built in Platma, which benefited both the people from Collio and Coolibee Street.
Octavia Prosper for the Government Information Service.
The government of Dominica has announced the establishment of an advisory board aimed at governing the care and protection of the country's elderly citizens. At a press conference held on Monday, February 6, 2023, the Minister of State in the Ministry of Health and Social Services with special responsibility for senior security, children at risk, gender affairs and the differently abled, Honorable Dr. Cassandra Williams, stated this government has always prioritized the care and protection of its elderly.
A society is judged on how it treats its most vulnerable citizens. And the policies this government has pursued in past years speak to the intent to look after the welfare of our elderly citizens and to create the conditions for them to live with dignity. The Yes We Care program, for example, continues to provide our elderly with daily assistance. And you will remember that to support our seniors, this government introduced the payment of a non-contributory pension to persons aged 70 and over.
Dr. Williams explained that this newly established advisory board will coordinate the health and social care of the elderly.
I wish to announce today that to improve our system of care to our country's seniors, the government of Dominica will establish an advisory board to coordinate the health and social care support for the elderly in Dominica. This advisory board will provide leadership, propose a multidisciplinary approach, and make strategic recommendations for improvements in systems and processes for the delivery of care services to seniors. Some of their areas of focus will include reviews of processes of care, ethics in clinical and social care, and the physical environment.
Meanwhile, CEO of the Premium Home and Residential Care Services and the chairperson of the advisory board, Marie-Therese Donker, says there are two major priorities that the board will seek to address immediately. One of these priorities will be the creation of a national dementia plan.
One of the board's first priorities will be to advise the government of Dominica on the creation of a national dementia plan. According to the World Health Organization's guidance towards a national dementia plan, 50 million people worldwide currently live with dementia, a condition that causes significant psychological burden as well as social and financial distress to those living with it, their carers and their families. The government of Dominica recognizes that a comprehensive multi-sectoral public policy response aimed at addressing the needs of people with dementia, their carers and families is needed to improve quality of life, enhance equitable access to services, and reduce stigma and social isolation.
Another priority is the enhancement and enactment of legislation which will make elder abuse a crime punishable by law.
Another one of our priorities is the case for enacting or enhancing legislation to make elder abuse a crime. It is urgent that we address the extent and complexity of elder abuse. We hear horror stories all the time about people taking people's land, people transferring properties into their names, people collecting people's pensions, or placing their names on elders' accounts and using the money not for the elder, but for themselves. We are an aging population and we must address the extent and complexity of elder abuse.
The advisory board will be made up of a wide cross-section of stakeholders who are all involved in the physical, spiritual and social care of the country's elderly. The Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services hosted a press briefing on Friday, February 3rd, 2023, to encourage citizens to exercise safety measures during the Carnival season, as COVID is still around. More in this report from Aliyah Martin.
COVID-19 has not gone away. However, Carnival lovers are expected to turn out in large numbers this season after a 2-year halt due to the pandemic. As Dominica prepares for the approach of Carnival, the Ministry of Health, Wellness and Social Services felt it necessary to alert patrons on some precautionary measures. A press briefing took place on Friday, February 3rd, 2023. Acting Chief Medical Officer Dr. Laura Esprit has encouraged the public to reclaim their sense of alertness.
If you have flu-like symptoms, you are kindly advised to get tested. Be sure that the flu is not COVID. Testing for COVID continues at all health centers across the island, at no charge. You do not necessarily have to be sick or symptomatic to be tested. If you wish to know your status, the staff are all trained to assist you, and stocks are available throughout the island to do so. And yes, the responsible thing to do is to isolate at home if tested positive for COVID, at home. Be creative and use costume-made masks that complements your outfit. Be sure that it covers your nose and mouth, and use during periods of mass gatherings.
The Ministry of Health has strongly encouraged the use of masks for people with high-risk jobs, though the mask mandate has been removed.
Workers at ports of entry, customs, immigration and police officers, persons in the hotel industry, inclusive of taxi and tour operators, street vendors and supermarket attendants, bus drivers and gas attendants, visitors to elderly homes and health facilities, emergency responders and healthcare workers, staff of saloons, barber shops, bars and restaurants, and of course persons with underlying medical conditions. If I were you, I would actually wear it. But again, the mask mandate has been removed, and we use the words strongly encouraged. For high-risk individuals, including persons diagnosed with asthma, you may want to stay on the sidelines or in less crowded areas. Organized bands can encourage a reasonable distance among their patrons, if possible.
Dr. Esprit shared a few tips to adopt during the Carnival to avoid the spread of the virus.
Cover your mouth and nose with a tissue when coughing or sneezing, and use the nearest waste receptacle to dispose of the tissue after use. If tissue is not available, cough or sneeze in your bent elbow. Work with a small hygiene kit, including hand sanitizers with 70% alcohol. As soon as it's convenient, wash your hands with soap and water for a minimum of 30 seconds. Avoid sucking on each other's rum flask. Get your own. Avoid sucking on each other's camel pack.
Aliyah Martin for the Government Information Service.
And that's all for this edition of National Focus. Be sure to follow GIS Dominica on Facebook, YouTube, and on Twitter. You can also drop us an email at gis@dominica.gov.dm. From all of us here on the GIS News Production team, I am Julian Morris. Thanks for watching.